Hello and welcome back to Mansell Raceway on the 24th of April 2022. It's still round 3 of the Blue Challenge, and as the juniors are just finishing their race in the background, the seniors are getting ready to head out for their final. 13 minutes plus a lap in store today for the senior blues, as they are going to be heading out on track momentarily. As the things stand in the championship at the moment, Dave Watts leads the way on tie-break ahead of Stuart Gray, with Anthony Cleal third ahead of Joey Foster, Kieran Quirk and Mike Bell. Nigel Vickery, Ben Joseph, Tom Parker and David Waldron all round out the top 10, even on 13 points apiece. Sylvain Vessier in 11th, ahead of Rob Mortimer and Sarita Schoen. Paul Alexander 14th. Chris Underhill and Steve Groves even on points, 15th and 16th, ahead of David Good, with Chris Lord, Robin Stones and Phil Shears rounding out the top 20. Going to be ahead of Alex Kemp. In the Blue Masters standings, Anthony Cleal leads the way, even on points with Stuart Gray. Joey Foster is in third, ahead of Nigel Vickery, Ben Joseph and David Waldron, all even on points. Rob Mortimer 7th, ahead of Paul Alexander, with Chris Underhill and David Good rounding out the top 10. Himself even on points with Steve Groves, with Chris Lord and Robin Stones in behind. In the Blue Veteran standings, Anthony Cleal once again leads the way from Stuart Gray. Nigel Vickery and David Waldron even on points in behind, ahead of Paul Alexander, with Rob Mortimer, David Good, Chris Underhill, Phil Shears and Steve Groves making up the top 10. Once again ahead of Robin Stones and Chris Lord, with Ron Schoen and John Hartshorn on 15th. In the Blue Legend standings, it's Chris Underhill leading the way this time. Once again, though, from Stuart Gray on drop score. Robin Stones third, ahead of David Good, Chris Lord, Ron Schoen and John Hartshorn. And in the Blue Top Weights, it's Rob Mortimer leading the way, 2 points clear of Ben Joseph, who's even with Tom Parker, with Phil Shears and Ron Schoen completing the top 5, ahead of John Hartshorn and Adrian Helps. And it was the top weight challenger Tom Parker to take the win in Heat 1 here today, ahead of Kieran Quirk. Anthony Cleal finishes third, ahead of David Watts, who went up 16 spots to fourth, with Sylvain Vessier rounding out the top 5. David Good, Paul Alexander, Mike Bell, Nigel Vickery and Chris Underhill completing the top 10, ahead of David Waldron. Chris Lord up 10 spots himself into 12th. Heat 2, David Watts would take the win and the fastest lap ahead of Anthony Cleal. Mike Bell and Chris Lord third and fourth ahead of Steve Groves, with Tom Parker, David Waldron, Ron Schoen, Phil Shears and Nigel Vickery making up the top 10, ahead of Rob Mortimer, Sylvain Vessier, David Good, Kevin O'Neill and Paul Wheeler in his first race, rounding out the top 15. David Watts would once again win Heat 3, again from Anthony Cleal, ahead of Sylvain Vessier and Mike Bell. Kieran Quirk completes the top 5 ahead of Steve Groves, Chris Lord, David Good, Tom Parker and Phil Shears rounding out the top 10. Ahead of Rob Mortimer, David Waldron, John Hartshorn, Paul Wheeler and Paul Alexander making the top 15. As the grid heads out onto track for the rolling lap, it's led away by the Oakley, Dave Watts. Standing alongside him is Anthony Cleal, ahead of Tom Parker and Mike Bell. Number 96, Pete Stadden struggling to get going there, but Mike Watts is in on the gun. Sylvain Vessier is going to complete the top 5 ahead of Chris Lord and Steve Groves, with David Good, Kieran Quirk and David Waldron running at the top 10. Nigel Vickery 11th ahead of Ron Schoen, Chris Underhill, Phil Shears and Paul Alexander. With Rob Mortimer, John Hartshorn, Paul Wheeler, Kevin O'Neill and Pete Stadden running at the top 20, ahead of Mark Cook, Adrian Helps, Alex Fortune, Mike Watts, Billy Thomas and Robin Stones complete the grid. A few more on the starts to tell you about, including Stones, Billy Thomas and Mike Watts. As the pack now heads towards the starting lights, Dave Watts sets the pace as the pack is all bunching up. We're on board with David Waldron, number 17. He's in 10th spot, and that's a good start ahead from Kieran Quirk. He's trying to go up the middle, the lights are out, and away we go. Down towards pit bend, it's Watts leading from Cleal, then it's Bell and Parker side by side. Vessier in behind in 5th, then it's Lord, Groves and the rest of the pack stealing through. Alex Fortune there making up a couple spots in the first corner, but into the complex for the first time. It's Watts, Cleal, Bell, Parker, Vessier, Lord, and Groves, Quirk, Vickery and Waldron. Plenty of chopping and changing in the early corners. Now we're on board with number 5, Paul Alexander. Ahead of us in the number 82 is Chris Underhill, himself having the victory in the Blue Legends O-Plate last time out and being rewarded as such with a brand new Esprit. So he's looking to use that to its fullest potential. Now down the straight, in towards the chicane go the leaders. Big pack, 22 carts took the start. Now we're on board with the O-Plate, Dave Watts in the lead of the race. Now to the inside comes Anthony Cleal down towards pit bend. Cleal's going to run side by side with Watts and he's going to make the move. Watts going to try and hang around the outside to Mansell, but Alexander there making the move on Underhill. Rob Mortimer passes John Hartshorn likewise. They go round now on towards the backstretch. Cleal defending from Watts, then comes Bell, Parker, Vessier and Lord. Kieran Quirk has passed Steve Groves as well up into that 7th spot. Now we're on board with Bell looking at the 2 leaders. Anthony Cleal not able to shake David Watts clear of him at the moment as he's heading down towards the hairpin. Number 1 leading the O-plate. Then there's Bell, Parker, Vessia, Lord, and then Kieran Quirk giving chase. Now we're on board with Paul Alexander, number 5. Ahead of him is David Good in number 7. To go through the chicane, but back at pit bend. There go the leaders. They've been holding station up towards the front. That's Rob Mortimer and Ron Schoen having a look at each other. That's Alex Fortune making the move against Kevin O'Neill. The Fortune in the blue passes O'Neill in the orange helmet. And Paul Wheeler, recovering from a poor start, is going to move on Pete Stadden, so the 2 novices swapping places. Around the complex they go. There's the proof. Wheeler ahead of Stadden. Now we're back on board with Paul Alexander getting right up close to the back bumper of David Good. Just up ahead at Hanger, Dave Watts has not been shaken loose by some feel and matched each other blow for blow. Through comes the pack. That's Steve Groves with Nigel Vickery on his tail. Now back on board with Watts. He's in the slipstream, he's going to pull to the inside and he's going to go down the inside of Anthony Cleal in pit bend. Watts retakes the lead, same way that Cleal got him. So that battle is definitely on as they're starting to put a bit of a gap back to the rest of the group. Now we're on board with Paul Alexander and he's going to commit from a long way back against David Good. He's going to make it to the apex. Good move there from Alexander. And that's a switch for 11th spot, so Alexander already up from 15th to 11th. Here comes the chasing pack in behind Ron Schoen, Rob Mortimer, John Hartshorn all in there. There's Paul Wheeler pulling away from Pete Stadden, look back at Hanger. Watson Cleal extending the gap. Dave Watts at the new fastest lap of the race last time by. Now we're on board with number 17, David Waldron. Ahead of us is number 18, Nigel Vickery, and they're chasing number 19, Steve Groves. Came to go, a nice bit of numerical symmetry. Down at pit bend, Watson Cleal starting to open that gap out even more against Bell and Parker and the rest. There's Paul Alexander, he's now up on the back of David Waldron. Now we're on board with Waldron. Vickery ahead, nice slide under braking from Vickery, getting hooked into the apex. He's going to be looking to try and get past Steve Groves, but he's going to be under pressure from Waldron and Alexander and Good from behind before too long. Alex Fortune and Kevin O'Neill stuck in a battle as now we're on board with O'Neill. Barb adjustment ahead of us for Alex Fortune as he sets about trying to catch up to number 90, John Hartshorn. There's Tom Parker chasing down Mike Bell on the way out of Hanger. Here comes the pack. Now we're on board with Alexander. It's David Waldron ahead of us in the all yellow. Down at pit bend. Bell, Parker, Quirk now ahead of Vessia on that last time by. Chris Lord still going with them. We're on board with Alexander, he's going to come from a long way back once again. He's going to slot in behind Vickery and yep, you've been tangoed is the message on his back bumper, sending it to David Waldron. And the door is firmly shut on the way up towards turn 4. And behind the battle still rages on, Ron Schoen attacking Chris Underhill. Now we're on board with Dave Watts. The man behind us is the same man on the sticker. They go down into the chicane, go Watson Cleal. Get a visual of what's behind us. Or what's alongside us now, should I say, as Anthony Cleal peeks out and dives down the inside. Anthony Cleal retakes the lead of the race. Got 3 moves between the 2 of them, all in pit bend. He's a prime overtaking opportunity. This is Alexander now pressuring Vickery. David Good on the back of David Waldron likewise. And Vickery going for the move against Steve Groves, and Nigel Vickery makes the pass against Steve Groves. They're going to run now up the back stretch. That's a switch for 8th spot. And behind there is Underhill, Shears, Schoen, and Mortimer all in the line. Now on board with Alexander. He's going to come from a ways back against Steve Groves as well, climbing all over the curve in the process, but Alexander makes the move. That is a move for 9th spot now for Paul Alexander. He's got to set off after Nigel Vickery, but he's got a few people still in tow. There's Underhill, Shears, Schoen, Mortimer, Hartshorn, Fortune and O'Neill still locked in battle. So they're going to run down towards the chicane, but at pit bend, Vickery leads this group. Group of 5 carts starting to break away, and here comes Phil Shears now down the inside of Chris Underhill. Phil Shears makes the move, that's for 13th spot. O'Neill and Fortune still locked together as we jump on board with Kevin O'Neill. Thinks about looking down the inside towards turn 2, but nothing doing into the complex this time by. Alex Fortune ahead of us, going to open that gap up a little bit on the straight, but up ahead that looks like Ron Schoen and Chris Underhill duking it out. Hard to see who's ahead from this angle. Pete Stadden and Mark Cook locked in battle over 21st spot at the moment. So everyone all up and down the order is in a duel. There's Shears. Underhill stayed ahead of Schoen, but Rob Mortimer's gotten through as well, so Schoen going from attacking to losing the spot. Vickery still holding off Alexander, but they're starting to break away from Steve Groves and David Waldron. And there's Rob Mortimer now down the inside against Chris Underhill, so Mortimer up 2 spots in about half a lap. Kevin O'Neill now side by side with Alex Fortune. Fortune slides back in ahead though, but O'Neill's going to switch back underneath. He's going to look to do it again and get the run up the back stretch. And O'Neill get alongside. Nope, Fortune's got the run. Moves over to take the apex. That battle's still brewing. Cook and Stadden. Mark Cook passes Pete Stadden on that last time by. They're going to be caught soon by the leaders, it looks like. Anthony Peel and David Watts. Bell, Parker and Quirk starting to come together for third. Vessia starting to fall back, likewise Chris Lord. He's the next target of Nigel Vickery. Now we're on board with Watts, and that's Stadden and Cook moving aside, letting the leaders go. And that's Ron Schoen making a move against Chris Underhill. That's Ron Schoen up into 15th spot. Paul Wheeler recovering from his poor first lap is catching this group as well. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for 13th spot before too long, as there's Pete Stadden waving at the camera. He needs to focus more on catching Mark Cook, or else Cook's going to break away. From behind though, Parker on the back bumper of Bell's, Quirk in there as well. It's 3 of them for third. Headed by cart number 3, so all the 3s in play. Nose to tail, bumper to bumper stuff this. They're going to go round pit bend. There's Vickery, he's taken some chunks out of Chris Lord over the last couple of laps. Battle for third, making its way past the battle for 21st. Now we're on board with Waldron. He's coming from a long way back, but he's going to make the move. Likewise Kevin O'Neill. So O'Neill now finally passes Alex Fortune. He's next target John Hartshorn. No, but Fortune comes back underneath on the exit. That battle is still going on. Speaking of battle still going on, the leader's still nose to tail. Watts has closed that gap back a bit. And then it's almost like a bobsled for third place. All 3 of them as one. Through the chicane. Right, left and right. That's Chris Lord now making the pass on Mark Cook, and Pete Stadden has followed them through. So Cook was letting lead left drivers through, and Pete Stadden has pounced on the opportunity. That's Bell and Parker now side by side for third spot. Bell's going to slide in and cover that off. Ahead of Parker, ahead of Quirk. They're breaking away all the time from Sylvain Vessia. In the next group, Chris Lord's been caught by Nigel Vickery. Oh, but in the background, Tom Parker's gone wide, Kieran Quirk up ahead, so that is a change for 4th spot. Now we're on board with Paul Alexander, and he's looking to the inside of Nigel Vickery, clambering all over the curves, but Vickery says no. And there's the proof. Quirk passed Parker, and Parker's got some damage to his front bumper there. That could potentially be a front bearing infringement. So he'll now be wanting to break away 5 seconds from the drivers behind. There's Stadden on the back of Cook once again. Round pit bend they go. And that's Kevin O'Neill now on the tail of John Hartshorn. Alex Fortune's made the move on Hartshorn. So they're battling over 17th spot right now. Round the complex they go. There's Underhill, Vickery and Paul Alexander. On the exit of pit bend, Ron Schoen up ahead of Rob Mortimer once again. Mortimer looking to fight back. He's ahead of us now. Nigel Vickery is going to go up the inside of Chris Lord. Good move there from Vickery on the exit of the loop. Heading down towards Hangar, but heading out of Hangar, Kieran Quirk all over the back of Mike Bell. Looks like he's got a good exit. He's going to pull out alongside, and they're going to go side by side into the chicane, and Quirk makes the move for third. Good move there from Kieran Quirk, but Bell tucks right back in behind. Going to try and make a move on the outside of pit bend. Nothing doing there, but they're going to run side by side once again on exit, up towards the complex. Quirk has the inside line though, but can Bell switch back across? Doesn't look like it as they go up the back stretch. Yep, Bell slots in behind. Pulls out again and has a think about it. Nothing doing there. Now it's Schoen ahead of Phil Shears. So Ron Schoen's made the move that last time by. Plenty going on all up and down the order. Paul Alexander making the move on Chris Lord once again. Seems to be one of his favourite overtaking spots. Now we are on board with Bell into 4th spot, now into the chicane. Kieran Quirk ahead of us. On the way at the chicane, just over a minute left on the clock. Bell using all the slipstream, doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot at the moment. Back to the battle for the lead, they're bumper to bumper once again as Dave Watts to the inside. Ron Schoen now starting to break away from Phil Shears as they go through the chicane there in the background. But in the foreground, Quirk, Bell, Parker, Vessia, and then it's Vickery with Alexander swarming all over the backfield. Chris Lord's still in that fight as well. So it's still kicking off all down the order. Kevin O'Neill once again looking to try and get back up alongside Alex Fortune. But Fortune slides across, closes the door. Through the complex they go, O'Neill right up under the bumper of Alex Fortune. But on exit, Alex Fortune with a better line, going to open that gap up a fraction. Now back on board with Bell. Back in the tow against Quirk. He's going to go now into pit bend. They're looking for tighter exit to move up alongside. As Rob Mortimer chasing Phil Shears with Chris Underhill in tow. Owen Fortune the back end stepping out. Kevin O'Neill's got an opportunity. He's going to look down to the inside into the chicane. Fortune's going to close the door though, and through the chicane they go. Clock is about to hit 0, so the next time by for the leaders will be the last lap. Kevin O'Neill down the inside once again. Nothing happening there though. Paul Wheeler's beat John Hartshorn, so they're in a battle too. Now we're on board with Dave Watts. Zoom in past the last lap board. Anthony Cleel's got about a cart length ahead of Dave Watts. There's Pete Stadden in behind them, and we've lost Mark Cook. Now onto the last lap. Bell against Quirk. Bell's going to look to the inside of pit bend. He's going to make up the inside, but he's going to slide wide. Kieran Quirk switches back, keeps that 3rd spot ahead of Parker. And there's Vessia. Vickery with Alexander right in tow. Back up to hanger, Kevin O'Neill still under that back bumper of Alex Fortune. Likewise Hartshorn and Wheeler, but the leaders now rounding hanger bend. Anthony Cleo holds a slim margin. Watts thinks about it into the chicane, but nothing doing there. He's going to have to hope for a better exit. But it's a good exit from Cleo, hand in the air, he knows he's got it. And Anthony Cleo wins his first race of the 2022 Blue Challenge. Dave Watts in 2nd, right up close behind a game performance. And now who's going to be 3rd as the battle goes through the chicane? On board with Bell, right up behind Quirk, but it's too little too late. Kieran Quirk finishes 3rd, ahead of Mike Bell, ahead of Tom Parker. Sylvain Vessia is going to round out the top 6, and he's going to do the next crosses victory from Alexander. But there's still plenty of battles going on. He's out of hanger bend with Ron Schoen, and Kevin O'Neill and Alex Fortune side by side yet again. O'Neill to the inside for the final chicane. Kevin O'Neill's going to make the pass against Fortune. John Hartshorn in behind is going to hold off Paul Wheeler, and they're going to run to the line. Fortune's going to have a look, but he's going to come up short. And Hartshorn and Wheeler are going to round out the finishers on the lead lap. What a fantastic race, all up and down the order. The results are going to be confirmed. Anthony Cleo takes the win, 0.2 of a second ahead of Dave Watts, who did set the fastest lap of the race. Kieran Quirk up 6 spots into 3rd ahead of Mike Bell and Sylvain Vessia making up the top 5. Tom Parker, after a 5-second penalty for a front fairing infringement, is going to drop to 6th spot ahead of Nigel Vickery, with Paul Alexander and Chris Lord and David Walden running up the top 10. Steve Rose will be 11th ahead of David Good. Ron Schoen, Rob Mortimer and Chris Underhill complete the top 15 ahead of Phil Shears, who likewise had a 5-second front fairing infringement. That's going to drop him to 16th ahead of Kevin O'Neill, with Alex Fortune, John Hartshorn, Paul Wheeler, Pete Stadden and Mark Cook rounding out the order. What that will do to the championship, Dave Watts takes the lead ahead of Anthony Cleo, with Joey Foster in 3rd despite missing this round. Mike Bell moves up to 4th ahead of Kieran Quirk and Tom Parker, with Sylvain Vessia, Nigel Vickery, David Walden and Steve Groves running at the top 10. Chris Lord in 11th ahead of Stuart Gray, Paul Alexander even with David Good, and Rob Mortimer running at the top 15 ahead of Chris Underhill, Ben Joseph, Phil Shears, Ron Schoen and Robin Stones. Going to be followed by Alex Kemp with John Hartshorn, Beatstad and Adrian Helps and Sarita Schoen completing the top 25. In the Blue Master standings, it's Anthony Cleal leading the way ahead of Joey Foster, with Nigel Vickery in third ahead of David Waldron and Chris Lord. Steve Rose in sixth ahead of Paul Alexander, David Good, Chris Underhill, Rob Mortimer and Stuart Gray. Underhill, Mortimer and Gray all on points. Ben Joseph 12th ahead of Phil Shears, Ron Schoen and Alex Kemp, and we're running at top 15 in the Masters class. Ahead of John Hartshorn with Robin Stones, Adrian Hobbs and Mark Cook in behind. In the Blue Veteran standings, Anthony Cleal leading the way ahead of Nigel Vickery with David Waldron third. A four-way tie between Chris Lord, Paul Alexander, David Good and Steve Groves completes the top 7. Ahead of Chris Underhill, Stuart Gray and Rob Mortimer running at the top 10. Ahead of Phil Shears, Ron Schoen, John Hartshorn, Robin Stones and Adrian Helms. In the Blue Legends class, it's going to be Chris Underhill retaining his lead ahead of Chris Lord, who took the victory on the day to tie him on points. David Good's going to move into third spot ahead of Stuart Gray, with Ron Schoen running at the top 5 ahead of John Hartshorn, Robin Stones, Adrian Helps, Kevin O'Neill and Mark Cook. In the Blue Top Weights, it's Tom Parker who takes the lead of the series ahead of Rob Mortimer, with Phil Shears moving up to third ahead of Ben Joseph, and Ron Schoen running at the top 5. Quick shout out to the NKRA Cadet Championship that kicked off today. Devin Giles being the highest registered starter and finisher. He's going to take the lead of that championship, which is still open. And in the Tabor Customer Front, it's Anthony Cleal who extends his lead at the top of the table ahead of Mike Bell. Top junior Sam Mitchell up into third ahead of Rob Mortimer and Joey Foster to round out the prize bracket, with Rudy Winslow walking in 6th spot. That's all for Mansell Raceway for today. Join us again soon as we bring you the Saturday and the Sunday from the Wessex Challenge and the next round of the Formula Blue Challenge from Clay Pigeon Raceway. Keep an eye out for that, and we shall see you then. Goodbye.
If my brakes hadn't died, I would catch the play. Obviously, I couldn't quite get the get my bike. I was bogging it. I should have tried to get it back again.